I'd like to add yet another story of a young Jehovah's Witness who was on his way to the upper echelons of this organization, but quickly realized that this organization is not what it presents itself to be. If you're a Jehovah's Witness and you come across this video, first of all, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your viewership. And hopefully you can find some sort of benefit from this video or relate to any of the thoughts that I share. And my intentions for making this video are not to attack anyone's religion or anyone's place of worship. It's to simply relate my story. So a little bit of my background is I'm a second generation Jehovah's Witness. My family migrated from one country to another. And when we moved to this country, the people that welcomed us were non-Jehovah's Witnesses. We didn't actually associate with any congregation for a little while. And so my early schooling was quite normal. I was involved with Christmas, birthdays, all the things that a normal Jehovah's Witness kid is not supposed to do. It was not until I moved to middle school that's when I stopped participating in all these things. And the reason for that was because I started studying with an elder. And so all these things went out the window. But I was still quite involved with my school friends, and I would do what Jehovah's Witnesses call extracurricular activities. And that's basically spending time with any non-Jehovah's Witnesses after school. And so we used to play soccer at school a lot. And my friends, recognized that I was quite good. And so they asked me to play for their local team. And so I joined and I was playing soccer with them for a bit. And then I got scouted for the state team. And so I tried out for this team and I made it. And that was quite a high level to be playing at. And I got to represent my state at nationals. And for me, in my head, I thought I could be a professional soccer player and be a Jehovah's Witness. But that opportunity was quickly snatched out of my hands. This organization really forces young people to choose between serving God and their talents or pursuing their careers. And the serving God part is really serving the Watchtower organization. And that's what happened to me. I was convinced that I made the right choice by quitting soccer and getting baptized was, me saying, and the way they do it is quite clever because they basically convince you that if you chose the career path, you would be selfish. And this is what God requires of you to do, to turn it down, to view it as refuge, as they call it. And so I thought I was, imitating Timothy by doing that. And so I got baptized. And not long after I got baptized, I was a regular pioneer, still in high school. One point I had 10 Bible studies. Don't worry, none of them became Jehovah's Witnesses. And after that, I was appointed a ministerial servant. And that's really when things started to escalate in terms of starting to wake up and realizing the truth about the truth. So why did I leave? Whenever I get asked this question today, I answer it slightly different to, the normal way that people would answer it. So you can give all the reasons and all the things that woke you up. But really for me, the reason why I woke up or the reason why I left is because when my reason for joining the religion by getting baptized was proven to be untrue, I had no reason to stay. And so it came down to, why did I become a Jehovah's Witness in the first place? See, many people choose to be Jehovah's Witnesses or to get baptized for many different reasons. And I'll speak about this a little bit later. But for me, it was because I was convinced that this is the organization that God chose as the right way for mankind to worship Him. The organization compares this to the ark, and the only way to survive Armageddon is to get baptized as a Jehovah's Witness. There's no other way. And that is my reason for becoming a Jehovah's Witness. Now, this reason is actually not what most Jehovah's Witnesses say is their reason for becoming or getting baptized. You see, right towards the end of my life as a Jehovah's Witness, I did a quick survey just in my congregation. I would use conversations and randomly just ask, why are you convinced that this is God's organization? Or what made you get baptized? And I would always throw in the second question is, if this reason was proven to be untrue, would you leave? And obviously they would say, no, absolutely not. But the most used responses I got were that they were convinced that this is God's organization because they have true love. They preach, they don't go to war, and they use and promote God's name. Apparently, those 4 reasons convinced them that God chose this organization and he's using it as his way of saving mankind. And that really illustrates the point of Jehovah's Witnesses, or people become Jehovah's Witnesses for the wrong reason. And it's not really until you think about how people become Jehovah's Witnesses, or the process of them becoming, and then this really starts to make sense of why they have these reasons instead of, you would think that you're becoming a Jehovah's Witness or you're getting baptized because you're convinced that, God is behind this organization, but that was never brought up. People were saying, because they don't go to war, because they preach. And that's completely dishonest. You can find many organizations that follow these things. Are they being directed by God? What does it come down to, Jehovah's Witnesses? Yeah, so my next little point, I would like to discuss how people become Jehovah's Witnesses, to sort of explain why they have these 4 reasons. These, I would say, emotion-based reasons. There's nothing logical about it. So firstly, most people become Jehovah's Witnesses through their parents. If your parents are Jehovah's Witnesses, it's very likely that you at least get taught to be a Jehovah's Witnesses. But the numbers are showing that more and more young ones are starting to sort of leave before even getting baptized. I believe it was, some articles said 67%. That's just, before baptism, not getting baptized at all. And that's certainly true from locally, just the people that I grew up with. The ones that didn't get baptized just ended up walking away. Yeah, that number gets even worse when you think about people who are getting baptized and then either getting disfellowship or just fading away. And so a lot of these numbers are encouraging to see, actually. People are starting to wake up. Even if they do wake up, there's also a lot of people who are physically in but mentally out, so they're already awake. And so a small number of Jehovah's Witnesses, that number gets smaller and smaller every year, are basically being converted or becoming Jehovah's Witnesses through their preaching work. And the way that works can bring an explanation as to why Jehovah's Witnesses become Jehovah's Witnesses, because of love and the preaching work. When Jehovah's Witnesses knock on someone's door, first of all, they'll use false promises to basically make them get more interested, show a bit of curiosity. This person could have lost someone they loved. They could be just going through really hard times in life. And so Jehovah's Witnesses come to them and say, we have the solution. God's kingdom. You're going to live forever in paradise. All these things. All your dead loved ones will be there as well. And so this person shows a little bit of interest. They maybe come to a meeting. And what happens at the meeting is also quite telling. Is basically there's this over-the-top display of love. And I know this happened a lot when I took my Bible studies. The one that were interested, they'll come to the meeting and literally all the brothers and sisters will start talking to them, showing interest. Even the ones that never speak to me, they'll all of a sudden just come and start showing this over-the-top interest in the people, these new ones. And the reason for that is because it's part of their recruitment. And it goes to explain why then this over-the-top love is shown. And that starts to convince them that, oh, wow, this is, different. I've never seen this before. Yeah, eventually that person, if they're interested enough, they'll show more interest and get baptized. So that's one way of becoming a Jehovah's Witness. The other more common way, slightly more common, is through childhood indoctrination. And it's quite interesting to think about because, when kids are born and they start to take in information, a lot of the information they take in from the time they can start understanding or listening to, let's say, 5 years old, a lot of that is what defines their childhood. And so this child will get introduced to this God, Jehovah. And then they'll start learning about Jehovah and the things that Jehovah hates. There's a long list of them. It could be the toy you're playing with. It could be the TV show you're watching. It could be the book you're reading. All these things could and can upset Jehovah. And then later on, you start to learn about the things Jehovah loves. He loves kids who go out in the ministry. He loves kids who pay attention at the meeting. He loves kids who preach at their school, and so on and so forth. All these things are what Jehovah loves and hates. And then this child is then taught about Armageddon, and basically what will happen to those people that Jehovah hates or make him upset. They'll be dead forever. And for a child, that is emotional abuse. Just imagine growing up as a child and thinking that, you could do the tiniest small thing and that will end up or resulting in you being dead forever while the rest of your family living forever. And so all this affects you as a child. And then you grow up later, you then learn about actually what is required to being saved. It's getting baptized. You remember all the stories you're being told about Noah's Ark and how you have to be inside the ark to survive. As you grow up, then this organization starts to replace Noah's Ark, basically. You have to be in the organization to be saved. And so that automatically convinces you to get baptized. And that's what happens to most children. After that, if you're a JW male, then the list goes on all the things you have to do. You cannot be over the age of 20 without being a ministerial servant. I believe it's 23 actually. You become an elder afterwards. And you're constantly reminded you're not doing enough. And so becoming a Jehovah's Witness through the preaching work versus being brought up as one is completely different routes. Both routes will affect your reasons for becoming one. One is fear-based. The other one is based on false promises. You're still holding on to these promises. And that explains why I got those 4 different responses. And another point I'd like to quickly discuss is basically the 2 types of Jehovah's Witnesses you will meet. See, the first type are the ones that are constantly have to be reminded by their parents, by the elders, anyone they spend time with, that this is the truth. Any rules that are set out by the organization are to be followed, no questions asked. And even if they want to do something else, they constantly have to be reminded, now this is what you have to do. Even if you don't like it, you have to do it. The other type of Jehovah's Witnesses are what I call truth seekers. Essentially the same thing happens to them. Their parents, the elders, anyone puts out this rule in front of them, like you have to follow this, no questions asked. They're the type to question it. Is this really what God requires of us? Where does it say that in the Bible? And I believe a lot more younger Jehovah's Witnesses are starting to fall into the second category, the ones that question it instead of just blindly following. And that is, again, encouraging signs. More people are waking up because they are seeking for the real truth. And so my advice to any young Jehovah's Witnesses who are possibly, just researching Jehovah's Witnesses for the first time, my advice to you would be basically to investigate your religion. I'd like to point you quickly to a book that I really wasn't aware of until I became a ministerial servant. See, my congregation, I used to do the literature and I would always we'll receive stock. And one time I opened the box and I saw this book. The title is Mankind's Search for God. This book was released in 1993, I believe. And it's got paragraphs and questions, which I'm led to believe that it was studied in the midweek meeting, but I can't remember ever studying this book. And I think I know why. If you go to the first chapter and then paragraph 12, there's perfect advice for any young Jehovah's Witnesses who are out there, and maybe they're starting to doubt what they're being told by their parents. All of us go through that. I'd like to share paragraph 13 and 14. It says, is it reasonable to assume that the religion imposed at one's birth is necessarily the whole truth? If you were born in Italy or South America, then without any choice you'd become a Catholic. If you're born in India, then you likely automatically become a Hindu. If you're from Punjab, perhaps a Sikh. If your parents were from Pakistan, then you would obviously be a Muslim. And if you're born in a socialist country over the last few decades, you might have had no choice but to be raised an atheist. Therefore, is the religion of one's birth automatically the true one, approved by God? If that has been the concept followed over the millenniums, many among mankind would still be practicing primitive shamanism and ancient fertility cults, on the premise that what was good enough for my ancestors is good enough for me. Jehovah's Witnesses, please question your religion, investigate it, and see if it's good enough for you. If you found any of the thoughts shared in this video useful to you, and you don't want to miss the next video, consider subscribing. And thank you for watching, and please stay safe.